She strode into the Monday staff meeting, wig gone, heels clicking, and every snickering salesman went silent as the failed applicant they'd mocked revealed herself as the CEO. One steady breath later, she fired the ringleader in front of the entire dealership, exposing the lies that had bled single moms and veterans for quick commissions. In that instant, everyone realized the most dangerous person in the room is the one you thought had no power at all. Hi, everyone. Today we're diving into a story that shows just how much power can hide behind silence and how justice doesn't always arrive with a badge or a gavel. Sometimes it walks in wearing a thrift store suit and a wig. This isn't a courtroom drama or a political scandal. It's about what happens inside the walls of everyday workplaces where titles get worshipped and truth gets buried. This story is about a woman who built an empire, then had to go undercover to save it. And here's the bold reality check. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching right now, drop a comment with your city and what time it is where you are. Let's get into it. Her name was Evelyn Marsh, 54 years old, founder and CEO of Marshline Auto Group, a company that started with a single used car lot in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and grew to over a dozen locations across 5 states. She was known for shaking hands with every new hire during their first week, for staying late at corporate meetings, and for preaching values like honesty, transparency, and hard work. But success has a way of pulling people further from the ground they once walked. By the time she got the third anonymous tip about the Lexington dealership from a former mechanic, a customer, and finally a regional parts manager, Evelyn knew it was time. This wasn't about a slow quarter or a bad batch of reviews. This was something deeper. She canceled her meetings. She told her assistant she needed a week of no interruptions, and she chose a new name, Gail Newton. No LinkedIn, no Facebook, no digital footprint. She printed a simple resume, 50 years old, 3 years out of work. Previous job listed as customer service rep at a regional cable company. She wore a wig with uneven bangs, glasses with a scratched lens, and a navy blue pantsuit 2 sizes too large. No makeup, no polish. Just another woman looking for work. When she stepped into the Lexington dealership just before 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, it was like stepping into a movie she didn't write. The glass door creaked. The front desk was unmanned. Country music buzzed softly from a portable speaker near the waiting area. Rows of new SUVs lined the lot outside, each with plastic tags taped to their windshields that read, "Red Tag Weekend," in crooked red Sharpie. No one greeted her for nearly 4 minutes. Finally, a salesman in khakis and a white Marshline polo strolled by, phone in hand. He looked up only briefly. "You, need service or something?" Evelyn Gale offered a shy smile. "Actually, I was hoping to ask about sales positions. If you're hiring," he looked her up and down. "You got any experience?" "Not really, but I'm good with people." He smirked. "Hey, Kyle," he yelled toward the back. "Got a fresh one?" Kyle, younger hair gelled back to a stiff wave, walked up, clearly the one who enjoyed playing alpha. "Sales, huh?" he said, circling her like he was trying to spot the tag on a clearance item. "Follow me." He dropped a stack of onboarding papers on an empty desk, pointed at a binder labeled Training 101, and told her not to bother anyone. "If you're still here by Wednesday," he said, "maybe I'll have you shadow someone." That was her grand welcome. No tour, no HR forms, no computer. Just a desk with a wobbly leg and a pen that didn't work. By noon, the whispers had started. "She looks like my aunt who collects ceramic clowns. Bet she still pays her phone bill at the grocery store." The laughter came easy. Evelyn stayed quiet, but she was already listening, watching. She observed how Kyle pressured customers, skipping over fine print and using jargon to confuse. She noticed the way the receptionist Grace was routinely interrupted or sent to fetch coffee. She saw how Luis, an older mechanic walking stiffly after surgery, was spoken to like a child who broke something. And then she saw Noah. He sat at a desk near the end of the sales row, no nameplate, fidgeting with a pen lid. Young, early 20s, slim build. There was a hesitation in his shoulders, like he was always bracing for a comment. She introduced herself during a lull in the foot traffic. "I'm Gail. Just started today." He looked up, surprised someone spoke to him. "Noah, welcome." Been here long few weeks. My mom's sick. I just needed a job. This place was hiring. His stutter was soft, his eyes apologetic, but there was something grounded in him, something Evelyn hadn't seen in a while: integrity. Later that afternoon, she watched as Kyle aggressively pitched a crossover to a young couple in scrubs and hoodies. The girl held a notepad. The guy kept asking about monthly payments. Kyle spun numbers fast enough to make anyone dizzy. When they left unsure and overwhelmed, Kyle fist-bumped the receptionist. Hooked him. Just need to reel him in tomorrow. Evelyn made a mental note. That night back at a motel 2 blocks away, she stared at the ceiling and thought of her first dealership. How she used to personally check the tires before a family test drove a used car. How she once gave a single mom a $500 down payment voucher out of her own pocket. What had this place become? And how many others like it had slipped through the cracks? She didn't have answers yet, but the next morning she came back. Same wig, same pantsuit, same plan. Observe, record, endure. For now. By Tuesday morning, Gail Evelyn was invisible. And in a place like that, invisibility was an advantage. She sat quietly at her wobbly desk, still flipping through the same training binder. No login credentials, no email access, no welcome packet. She had been told not to bother anyone, so no one bothered her. But Evelyn had always known how to read a room even in silence. And the longer she stayed quiet, the more the cracks began to show. She saw how Kyle would hover behind newer salespeople like a hawk, especially if they landed a walk-in customer. Just making sure you're not saying the wrong thing, he'd say with a fake chuckle, but his eyes always tracked the dollar signs. If he thought a deal was going somewhere, he'd swoop in, cut the rookie out, and close it himself. She saw it happen to Noah twice that morning. Noah didn't complain. He just sat back down, shoulders slumped, and tapped on his keyboard like it didn't sting. Everything okay? She asked during a quiet moment. He gave a half smile. Yeah, just part of the game, I guess. Evelyn didn't respond right away. She wanted to, but she was still just Gail, the awkward new lady with the coffee-stained resume. That afternoon, a technician named Luis walked into the showroom to ask about a parts delay. He was in his early 60s, moved with a limp, wore a faded marshline hat, and grease-stained coveralls. Before he even finished his sentence, the general manager, Mark Travers, stepped out of his office and barked, "Luis, you're on the clock. This ain't social hour. Go back to the bay or clock out." Luis mumbled something, maybe got it, then turned back toward the garage. No one said a word. Gail wrote it down. She spent the rest of that day reviewing training paperwork, but what she was really doing was collecting observations. She took mental inventory of conversations, watched who got attention and who was left adrift. She noticed Grace, the young receptionist, offered a gentle smile to every customer who walked in, even when the managers ignored her presence. Grace was the only person who asked Gail if she needed anything, and she said it sincerely. Around 3 p.m., a woman came in holding a toddler on one hip and the hand of a preschooler with the other. Her jacket was threadbare, and her sneakers were taped at the seams. She smiled nervously, clutching a manila folder filled with paperwork. "Hi," she said, to no one in particular. "I was hoping to talk to someone about financing." Kyle glanced up, then looked away. Mark Travers never looked at her. Derek, another senior salesman, rolled his eyes. "Probably got $5 in a prayer," he muttered loud enough for Gail to hear. Finally, Bryce, the loudest of the bunch, strolled over with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Well, hey there," he said, flashing a crooked grin. "You here to get a car today?" The woman nodded, hopeful. "Awesome. What's your budget? I was hoping to stay under $12,000. I have about $1,000 to put down today." Bryce let out a low whistle and turned toward the back lot. "Tight budget, but we'll find something." He didn't mention interest rates. He didn't ask about her needs. He led her toward a car Evelyn knew for a fact had transmission issues that had been flagged in a quarterly service report she reviewed just 2 months earlier. Gail followed slowly, hovering near enough to listen. "This one's a gem," Bryce said, tapping the roof of a dusty crossover. "Roomy, reliable, great family ride." The woman shifted the toddler to her other hip and glanced nervously at the sticker price. "It's a little over," she said. "Monthly payments what matters," Bryce replied smoothly. "We'll stretch it out. You won't even feel it." That was the moment Evelyn stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said gently. "I think there's a 2015 Accord on the second row. Clean record, newer tires might be a better fit." Bryce's smile stiffened. "Thanks, Carla. I've got it." "I'm sure you do," she replied. "But she deserves something honest." The woman looked between them, unsure who to trust. Bryce guided her away with a hand on her shoulder. Evelyn watched as they disappeared into the finance office, her stomach tightening. She sat back at her desk and scribbled down the details. And when Bryce emerged later, high-fiving Derek and muttering, "Another one in the bag," she didn't flinch. She just listened. By Thursday, the break room became the battlefield. Lunch was barbecue from a local place. Styrofoam containers filled with ribs, hush puppies, and coleslaw. Derek and Kyle took seats across from Gail, grinning like wolves. "So Gail," Derek said mouthful, "any big sales yet?" "Not yet," she replied quietly. "Better hurry," Kyle added. "This place eats slow starters?" They laughed. Then Derek leaned back and announced, "Y'all ever notice how Gail just sits and stares like a lunch lady at a talent show?" More laughter. Noah sat nearby, eyes on his phone, earbuds in. But he heard it. He looked up. "You done?" he said. The room fell still. "You act like being mean is some kind of flex," Noah continued. "She's done nothing but show up. Maybe try that sometime." Derek scoffed. "Relax, kid." "I am relaxed," Noah said, voice steady. "Y'all are the ones sweating strangers." He grabbed his lunch and left. Gail watched him go, her heart pounding. Something had shifted. Later that afternoon, she caught him by the vending machines. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yeah, well," he shrugged. "Someone needed to." "You okay?" Noah hesitated. "I thought this job would be different. I was just trying to hold things together for my mom. But this place, it changes you." Evelyn wanted to tell him who she was, that help was coming, but it wasn't time. Not yet. That night, she reviewed the security logs. Someone had left sales sheets on her desk by mistake. She saw a pattern. End-of-month deals with padded fees, add-ons that weren't requested, vehicles marked certified without inspections. She wasn't just seeing a toxic culture. She was seeing potential fraud. The final straw came on Friday morning. Luis, the older mechanic, was chewed out in front of half the floor. "You're too slow," Mark Travers shouted. "You want your hours, then earn them. Or go home." Luis didn't respond, just tightened his grip on his wrench and walked out, dignity stripped. Evelyn stood at the glass, staring into the lot, hands shaking. This wasn't a company anymore. It was a machine. And it was chewing people up. She had come to observe. But she'd seen enough. Monday would be a different story. Monday came early. At 6:45 a.m., Evelyn Marsh stood in front of the bathroom mirror in her motel room, staring at the wig that had been her armor for the past week. She peeled it off slowly, letting her real curls fall around her shoulders. Gone were the frumpy suit, the scratched glasses, the faded sneakers. Today she wore a tailored navy blazer, pressed slacks, a crisp white blouse, and low black heels, polished to a mirror shine. She tucked her corporate ID into her leather briefcase, took one long breath, and walked out into the morning air. By 7:55 a.m., the dealership's staff began to shuffle into the building, some still nursing their first cup of gas station coffee, others yawning behind hands or cracking jokes about the weekend football scores. Evelyn was already inside. She stood at the front of the conference room, arms crossed loosely, a clipboard in her hand. She didn't speak. Not yet. "Mandatory meeting," Derek said to Kyle as they wandered in. "Bet it's another numbers push." Kyle smirked. "Or maybe Gail's finally selling something and we're throwing her a party." They both laughed. Then they saw her. They stopped mid-step. Bryce strolled in behind them, tossing his car keys on the table. "What, no donuts?" He looked up, paused, stared. "That her," he whispered to Kyle, voice barely audible. Kyle nodded. "That's her." Trevor, the floor manager, followed a moment later, saw Evelyn, and nearly dropped his tablet. Mark Travers walked in last. He froze in the doorway. Evelyn turned slow and steady. "Morning," she said, her voice calm and level. "If we haven't met before, or if you think we have, my name is Evelyn Marsh. I'm the founder and CEO of Marshline Auto Group." Silence. "You may have known me last week as Gail Newton. I spent 5 days here sitting among you, eating lunch in that break room, watching how this place operates. I did not come here to test anyone. I came here to understand. The room remained still. No jokes now, no laughter. She stepped forward, flipping open the clipboard. What I witnessed was not just poor training or sloppy practices. What I witnessed was cruelty disguised as confidence. I saw salesmen lie to young families. I saw service workers mocked for moving too slow after surgery. I saw loyalty punished. I saw you, Bryce. She turned toward him, directly sell a knowingly faulty crossover to a single mom just trying to keep her kids safe. Bryce's mouth opened. Nothing came out. You called her a hooked one as she left the finance office? Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Kyle stared at the table. Mark stood stiff in the doorway, like a statue that had cracked down the middle. I saw a technician told to earn his hours or go home. I saw a woman's clothes become a punchline. I saw kindness treated as weakness. I saw rot. She paused. Let it sink in. But I also saw something else. Her voice softened. I saw Noah Ellis stand up to bullies in a room full of silence. I saw Grace, the receptionist, treat customers with dignity, even when her coworkers couldn't remember her name. I saw courage in the quietest corners of this building. She walked over to the whiteboard behind her and picked up a marker. She wrote one word in capital letters: trust. That's what we lost here. Not sales volume, not market share. Trust with our customers, with each other, with the meaning behind this company's name. Mark finally cleared his throat. You went behind our backs. That's not how a leader handles concerns. Evelyn turned slowly to face him. Leadership is not about staying behind a desk. Leadership is showing up when no one expects it, listening when others are quiet, leading by example. And sometimes that means seeing with your own eyes what numbers and reports can't tell you. Trevor raised a hand halfway. We didn't know who you were. We thought you were just... She cut him off. Exactly. You treated someone you thought had no power like they didn't matter. And that's the problem. Bryce stood up. Look, whatever you think you saw. You're done here, she said flatly. Your behavior was not a one-time offense. It's a pattern. And it ends now. She turned to Trevor and Mark. The same goes for both of you. You had authority. You used it to humiliate, not lead. Your tenure here is over. Security, prearranged and waiting outside the door, stepped in without a word. The three men were escorted out silent, now their laughter replaced by disbelief. Once the door closed, Evelyn turned back to the rest of the room. I know some of you are wondering if you're next. That's not why I'm here. She let that hang. I'm not here to punish. I'm here to rebuild. She walked around the table slowly. If you are here to build something better, something you can be proud of, you have a place at Marshline. If not, I understand. There are plenty of dealerships that care more about pressure than principle. She looked at Noah. You don't need a title to lead. You just need to speak up when it counts. He met her eyes, stunned. She looked at Grace. And kindness. It echoes louder than you think. The room remained quiet, not out of fear, but something else. Reverence, realization, maybe even hope. Evelyn stepped toward the door. I'll be in my office, she said. Not Gail's desk. My office. My door's open. She left the room. The ripple had begun. By 8:30 a.m., the office phones were ringing, but this time not with customer complaints. Word had traveled faster than coffee brews. Evelyn's reveal had shattered the comfortable rhythm of the dealership like glass dropped on tile. But instead of panic, what followed was a strange kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, the silence of reckoning. The dealership floor looked different by the end of that day, and not just because Derek, Bryce, Trevor, and Mark Travers were no longer standing in it. Kyle hadn't even returned after the lunch break. He'd sent a one-sentence email to HR. I think it's time for me to move on. No signature, no thank you, just a vanishing act. But not everyone left. Noah arrived early that morning. He looked nervous, unsure whether he'd be rewarded or resented for speaking up. When Evelyn saw him standing near the employee entrance with 2 coffees in hand, she smiled. Figured you might want the good kind today, he said, offering one. Only if it's strong enough to undo a week of microwave eggs and powdered creamer, she replied. He grinned, double shot. They sat in her office. The blinds were open, the sun pouring across the desk, no more flickering fluorescence, No more closed doors. It was a small shift, but it mattered. So what now, Noah asked. We rebuild, Evelyn said simply, from the inside out. She met with every single employee that day. No clipboards, no performance reviews, just real conversation. Grace, the receptionist, sat across from her, around mid-morning, hands folded in her lap, looking like she'd been summoned to the principal's office. You've been holding this place together without anyone noticing, Evelyn said. That stops today. Grace blinked. What do you mean I'm creating a new position? Customer Experience Coordinator. You'll be the bridge between sales, service, and support. Real authority, better pay, full benefits. Grace's eyes welled up. Why me? She asked softly. Because when everyone else looked away, you looked up, Evelyn replied. By noon, Evelyn had drafted a new transparency policy for all sales paperwork, working with Tina, the quiet finance assistant, who'd once stayed late to correct a misprinted lease agreement and never told anyone. No one saw you, but I did, Evelyn said. This policy, we're building it together. Then there was Noah. I don't know if I'm cut out for management, he said, when she offered him a slot in the leadership development program. You weren't ready to stand up in the break room either. But you did, she reminded him. Leadership's not about having all the answers. It's about doing the right thing, especially when no one else will. He sat quiet for a beat, then nodded. Okay, I'll try. By Thursday, something even more surprising had happened. Customers noticed. A couple who'd bought their first car at the dealership years ago came in holding hands and smiling like they were visiting an old friend. Feels different in here, the man said, glancing around. It is, Evelyn replied. Some employees were still uncertain. Some whispered in corners, wondering if this was just for show, just a moment of PR damage control. But others leaned in. The receptionist no longer had to answer phones and fetch coffee at the same time. Technicians were looped in on safety reviews. A suggestion box appeared in the break room, and people actually used it. And then on Friday, just after lunch, she walked in. The single mom from earlier that week. Same worn jacket, same children, one now holding a bag of goldfish crackers, the other clinging to her hip. Her eyes scanned the room, cautious. Evelyn stepped out from her office and approached gently. I got your message, the woman said. Wasn't sure it was real. It was, Evelyn said. You were taken advantage of. That's on us, and I'd like to make it right. They sat down together. No hard pitch, no sales script, just a conversation. In the end, the woman left with a more reliable vehicle, older, yes, but clean, safe, and within her budget. No hidden fees, no pressure. And this time she left smiling. As she buckled her children into the back seat, she turned and said, Thank you. You didn't have to do this. I did, Evelyn replied. It's my name on the building. By the time the weekend came, Evelyn had already written and recorded a video message for every manager across her company's dealerships. It was just her in an empty office with a small camera on a tripod. I'm Evelyn Marsh, CEO of Marshline Auto Group, she said into the lens. If you're watching this, it means you've been trusted with leadership. And if you're not ready to earn that trust, you need to step aside. She went on to tell the story not of who she was, but of what she saw, how a culture had soured beneath the surface, how leadership wasn't a parking spot or a title, it was how you made people feel when no one was watching. I started this company with a folding chair and a card table in Kentucky, she said. I didn't build it to be the biggest. I built it to be the best. And the only way forward is together with truth, with dignity, and with purpose. The video was mandatory viewing. Some managers rolled their eyes. Some watched it twice. One regional director called her personally. I think we've lost our way, he said. How do we fix it? You start by listening, Evelyn told him. Really listening. In the following weeks, small changes turned into big ones. A new code of ethics was introduced and actually read. Customer feedback was posted on the break room wall for discussion, not dismissal. Salespeople were trained on empathy, not just closing techniques. And when Evelyn walked the lot one afternoon and saw Noah patiently walking a nervous customer through the features of a used sedan, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Pride. Real pride. Not in sales figures. Not in expansion maps, but in people, in possibility, in purpose restored. The mornings felt different now. No more stomping footsteps, no more locker room banter echoing through the service bay. The energy in the Lexington dealership had changed subtly at first, then steadily like a rusted machine, learning how to move again without grinding its own gears. By week 3, Evelyn didn't need to be in the office every day, but she came anyway. She liked walking the lot before the doors opened, liked seeing how Grace had added potted plants to the reception desk, how Tina printed out clear finance guides for new buyers, and how Noah, yes, Noah was now leading morning huddles with a soft but steady voice. There was still work to do. There always would be. But Evelyn saw it in the eyes of her staff. They were no longer waiting for the next blow, the next insult disguised as a joke. They were looking for ways to help each other and their customers. She passed by the technician's bay one morning and saw Luis, the 61-year-old mechanic Mark Travers had tried to phase out laughing with a young new hire as they lifted the hood of a minivan. "Got it fixed?" Evelyn asked casually. Luis turned, smiled. "Runs smoother than I do, but yeah, we're good." Later that day, a young woman in her 20s walked into the dealership for her first real job interview. Her resume was thin, her shoes scuffed, but Grace greeted her with warmth, offered her water, and walked her back to meet with Noah. When Evelyn passed by the conference room, she saw Noah sit across from the girl, not behind a desk but beside her, explaining what the company stood for, now what kind of place this was becoming. She didn't interrupt. She just smiled. That Friday afternoon, Evelyn pulled Noah aside. "You've come a long way," she said. He looked unsure. "I just didn't want to mess up." "You didn't," she said. "You showed people how to stand up without stepping on anyone. That's rare." He glanced around the floor, watched the other team members at work. "Think it'll last, it will," she said, "because people like you are making sure of it." On her final Monday in Lexington, Evelyn packed her briefcase, stood at the door of her office, and looked out one last time. The sales floor wasn't quieter, but it was kinder. A customer held the door for a technician carrying a box. Grace laughed with Tina about something silly. The coffee pot had been replaced. Someone brought in donuts with a handwritten note. "Thanks for making this place better." It wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about people, and that made all the difference. She walked through the building, slowly saying quiet goodbyes. She stopped at Noah's desk. "I'll be back," she said. "But from now on, you're the one people will look to." He looked up. "I don't know if I'm ready." "You're more ready than most," she said. Then she stepped outside, the wind catching her coat, the sun glinting off the Marshline auto sign overhead. She remembered what it looked like when she arrived, glossy, bright, and hollow inside. Now it felt solid again. Not perfect, but honest. And in today's world, that's a start. Sometimes leadership doesn't wear a name tag. It doesn't shout orders from behind a glass door or measure worth by quarterly returns. It listens, it watches, and when the moment comes, it acts. Not to shame, but to restore. What Evelyn Marsh did wasn't just bold, it was necessary. She risked being mocked, ignored, even humiliated to walk in the shoes of those the system had forgotten. And in doing so, she uncovered a deeper truth that culture isn't built in boardrooms. It's built in break rooms, in service bays, at worn-down desks where people quietly try to do the right thing, even when no one's watching. If you've ever worked in a place that made you feel small, if you've ever seen someone treated unfairly while everyone else stayed silent, or if you've ever wondered whether kindness and integrity still matter in business, let this story be your answer. Because they do, and they always will. If you're in a position of influence, ask yourself, what kind of space are you building? Is it one where fear grows in the corners, or one where people are proud to show up? And if you're not in power, remember this: you don't need a title to lead. You just need the courage to speak, the decency to care, and the integrity to do what's right, especially when no one's looking. Thanks for joining me today. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and share where you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this matter, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay watchful, stay brave.